So, like, I was thinking about something. Um, I was thinking about Muammar Gaddafi. Like a lot of people hate him. They don't understand what he did, though. They don't get any part about it. I mean, if you look into the matter, it's like, well, old Hillary murdered a good man. If you look at it for what it is, I mean, there was nothing bad about the guy. If you just look at his surroundings and what he did to them, his people, they loved him and he loved them. It was really a good situation for many, many years. And the entire uh like I remember driving to work. I was working at the American Public Media Marketplace at the time, and they were talking about Libya on the radio. Like how Muammar Gaddafi is this evil man. He's just murdering these protesters and this and that, and I believed it too. I believed it. I fully believed it. And I was like, man, an asshole, kill that fucker. And then they did. They killed him. Um, but I was actually looking into Farrakhan at the time. For whatever reason, it's not important, but um, he was a good friend of Muammar Gaddafi. So I wanted to look into Gaddafi because I looked into Farrakhan because he mentions him a lot. They're good friends. Him and Nelson Mandela are good friends too. Another interesting point to make is that one of the reasons Nelson Mandela was released from prison in South Africa is because of Muammar Gaddafi. It's indisputable. I mean, there's pictures of him at the gates at the prison shaking hands with Nelson Mandela as he's being released. Like, he lobbied for years for that. So he's an inherently good man. Let me just say that. He's a good man, was a good man. And let's just backtrack a second. So Libya started as this sort of backwater African village country. Almost. I mean, it wasn't a country till we drew lines around everything in Africa, but it was a bunch of tribes basically, like that were living nomadically in this area, close to the Sahara Desert. Very like in tune with the earth in a way because they have to live on minimal water, minimal means. Like that's just what they lived by. So Libya is created. I don't remember the details of how Gaddafi took over. I don't remember the details, but I don't think they were violent, if I remember correctly. I did read about them, but they're slipping my mind right now. So hey, what you gonna do? You're looking them up yourself. But so when he took over, it was basically a country of one big tent city in the desert. And over the course of, just to cut to the chase here, over the course of 40 years, he built houses and housed every single resident. He even said that he would not house his parents until every other resident was housed. And he kept good on that promise. You can ask his mother. Seriously. So like he built schools, playgrounds, hospitals, libraries, town centers. I mean, he irrigated the fucking Sahara Desert for his people. Do you know how hard that is? I mean, it's like there's no water in the. He found water in the Sahara Desert and irrigated it to his country, so they could have water, a steady flow of water. I mean, the dude was on point. If you were getting married, he gave you like a $25,000 grant, just part of the state oil fund that he shared with the people, unlike anybody else. And if you were planning to go to college, it was totally free, books for free. It was a completely free education. Nothing cost anything in education under Gaddafi's rule. Anything. Books were free, education was free, classes were free. Women had full rights, by the way. This wasn't a Muslim caliphate. Women had complete equality in this society. It was complete equality. There's so much, but like, I mean, if you wanted to go to college or university in another country, he would give you a stipend. He would pay for a part of it. Like he would, if you, it's like he wanted to go to Harvard in America, he'll pay for a piece of it for you because you're one of his people. You know? When is the last time any politician in America did anything like that, even in a remote sense? That wasn't a platitude that was useless. I mean, I'm talking about actionable items, like they did something. Not, I can't think of a single time. Can you? This man did endless things for his people, and this is a reality. And so, long story short, he decides one day, I mean, he gets a wild hair up his ass, and he's like, you know what? This dollar thing is stupid. We're wasting, we're blowing, this is killing us, man. It's like, let's just create our own, like, we're powerful now. My country is great now. We're going to create our own currency. And we're going to base it on gold. We're going to call it the gold dinar. And we're going to have it be a Pan-African currency that it's going to trump the dollar. It's going to ruin the dollar. And then we're going to have, when you buy oil from me, you must buy in gold. And then within a month or two, or maybe 6 months, I don't know the exact amount of time because there's no clear time frame on this, but we had a no-fly zone over his country. And then within, 2 months after that, he was dead. Murdered by a bunch of thugs we hired on camera as he was screaming, "What you're doing is a sin. What you're doing is a sin." By a bunch of fucking thugs that America hired to kill him. And at the time, I cheered. I was like, yeah, they got the fucking, yeah. Because I believed what they told me on the radio. I was convinced that he was killing his own people. But the reality is he was not at all. Because if you look at every leaked document that's happened since then, things were great in Libya until we sent our terrorists over there, our boys in Al-Qaeda that we blamed for 9/11 that didn't have a fucking thing to do with it, because we all know who did it. That's an easy one. Think about it. But it wasn't the Muslims. Osama bin Laden didn't knock down the towers. He even said he had nothing to do with it. Terrorists always take credit for their shit, don't they? They always do. They're like, that was me. You bet, that was me. He's like, no, I had nothing to do. Seriously, I did not do that. Listen to me for a second. I didn't. That's what it was like. He was a darling of the United States up until the 80s. Well, actually, well into the 80s, because he was helping us beat the evil Soviets that were trying to promote socialism in Afghanistan, and we couldn't have that happen, so we had to protect them from the Soviets. So we went over there and massacred a bunch of them in the form of terrorism by a group that we put together called the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. There's even newspaper articles from 1983 that Bin Laden built the roads in Afghanistan. He's a king among men, and his family is very prominent in the entire region. Bin Laden Construction is the premier construction agency in Saudi Arabia. That's a big fucking deal. So think about that's the riches that his family has. And they say he was excommunicated from his family, but that's part of the narrative that you just gotta take with a grain of salt, because think about it. They tried to sell us videos of him plotting and scheming, and it wasn't even the right beard that they had on as the actor they was trying to play him with, and think about that. Everything they said about the guy was wrong, because he was our boy up until about 20 years before that, or 15 years before that. He was our dude. We loved him for taking care of Afghanistan for us. He's a mercenary, just like everybody else we've hired from ISIS to Al-Qaeda. They're mercenaries. So not to downplay the Gaddafi factor, but rest in peace. He was a good man. I think he's wrongfully demonized, and people need to open up their eyes to who he really was. We killed possibly the only benevolent dictator that I can think of in our recent history. Maybe a few African I can't remember his name. The guy that went along he traveled from Africa to the Middle East, just giving gold to everybody. He had so much money. I can't remember his name, but I can't remember where he's from. But like people like that. That dude was loved by his people, and he loved his people, and that's the reality of it. And everybody knows it. And I wish I could remember his name, but you just got to look up the guy who went on a 1,000-mile trek with maybe 100,000 donkeys through the desert, spreading gold around. I mean, it's like, you'll find the answer. African guy. Amazing person. But that wasn't in our lifetime. That was hundreds of years ago. And the only one that I could think of who fits sort of that sort of bill is Gaddafi. I mean, I know it's not popular to say that, but if you just look into it with clear eyes, new eyes, forget about what they told you, and it's been long enough that you should forget by now. Anyway, so just think about it from a fresh perspective, because that's where you should be anyway. And look at him. Don't use Google. Use Quant. QWANT to get real results for shit. It's like Google was 20 years ago. You actually get results. Instead of what they curate for you, which nobody fucking wants and nobody fucking cares about, but nobody knows the difference because that's what they use. Everybody fucking uses it. The status quo is deceptive. So like, don't use Google to search for it. Use Quant for anything that I talk about. Never use Google for it, because you won't find the right answers, because they're curated and they're narrative driven. Quant gives you the raw search results, like Google used to give you. Like, for instance, like if you, this is hilarious too, because they haven't changed it, which is amazing. But if you search on Google for anything, you'll get a number at the top. It's like billions of results. Say like you search for climate change, for instance, you get billions of results. But then if you search, you go like, you have the long next button, gets to the next batch. That ends around 30 whatever you call them, numbers, 30 numbers, whatever that is, like 30 pages. It's nowhere near a billion results. And then when you get to the 30th page, it actually says the real number, which is roughly in the hundreds usually. They're not telling you everything. Search for yourself. Do exactly what I just said on Google. Search for something. Notice the gigantic search results at the top of the page. Then click all the way through to the end, and you will find it ends. And the number at the top of the page will change. Just try it. I'm getting ahead of myself or around myself or something weird. I don't know. But then we moved on to Syria. Another situation that was it was in the plan. I mean, it was clearly stated many times that Syria was on the list. And for that matter, most people don't remember this, but because I despise Zelensky. I despise him. He's anyway. He did that grotesque film shoot with him and his wife in the fucking whatever shit cumrag magazine that was. Whatever that was, it was garbage. And it was taunted as, oh, look at this, the first lady of Zelensky, oh. Assad's wife did the same thing in Vogue just before we invaded them, and then all of a sudden you can't find that particular magazine. What do you call them when you like? I always forget this. Like, so a magazine, not subscription. I'm brain dead right now, so it doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about, though. So that particular article is unfindable. You cannot get it online. You can't find it anywhere. You have to get it from archives. If people have it, you can find it, because there are people that have it. Like the Redacted Ink news guys, they have it for sure. And a lot of people have, but it got pulled. You cannot find it anywhere because suddenly she was this demon because Assad was now a demon and everyone said he was a demon. He was killing his own people. But no, same formula applies. We send in thugs, the same thugs that killed Gaddafi, as a matter of fact. Yeah, and we massacred a few 100,000 people over there. And we called it fundamentalist Islamic terrorism. Because we love to demonize brown people for some reason. Although now we demonize white people in Russia. That's our new game. Same game, new people. Think about that for a second. But the cycle turned on and on and on and on and on. I mean, Syria is still happening to this day. And God bless Bashar al-Assad. I don't care what the fuck anybody says. God bless Bashar al-Assad. He's a god among men as far as I'm concerned. That dude is held fast against... like, this is why I know Russia will win. Because we've been trying to topple Bashar al-Assad for, I don't know, at least 10 years. More than that. I don't know how many years, but at least 10 years. And that dude has been indestructible. And he's on the good side. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. He has been trying to protect his people since the beginning against these armed terrorists that have invaded his country. They blow up schools. They blow up hospitals. They're no different than the Nazis in Ukraine that do the same thing to the people in Donbass. They've been doing for 9 fucking years in Donbass that nobody seems to fucking care about. They killed 15,000 citizens by torture and blow and shells. And everyone's like, oh, that's a lie. Like, there's footage. I mean, there's a video of Ukrainian Nazis throwing dead people in a mass grave. And I can find on Telegram for you and send to you if you want it. It's disturbing. But they're there. Not to mention Wyatt Reed's excellent reporting in Donbass. He's been shelled twice. Bartlett. I'm retarded tonight, but her last name is Bartlett. I'm drawing a blank on her first name, but that's. And then another girl, I don't remember her name either, but the German girl that was reporting there was actually prosecuted by the German government for telling the truth. Because they don't prosecute you for lying. You get fucked for telling the truth, which is what happened to Julian Assange. That's all he did, was tell the truth. I mean, there's never been a WikiLeaks story that's ever had to be retracted. Not once, never once had to have an apology. Sorry, we were wrong. Because everything they did went alongside the actual documents that they released in a database that you could download yourself, the real documents. You could verify yourself with what they gave you. Nothing ever had to be retracted or fixed or apologized for. Because it was all given to you up front, as is, as they saw it, and they didn't fucking curate it and change it and fucking, oh, this is what it is. And like fucking The Intercept, which is a fucking honeypot for whistleblowers. Don't ever, if you're going to blow a whistle, do not ever use The Intercept. Never, 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 never. Pierre Omidyar is a monster. There's numerous quotes from him that specifically say that whistleblowers are thieves that should be prosecuted. And he started The Intercept under the guise of a whistleblower journalist outfit. There's been 3 whistleblowers that have gone to prison for whistleblowing to The Intercept. It's a fucking honeypot for whistleblowers. It draws them in under the guise of it being this liberal, whatever you want to call it, what the Washington Post was in the 60s or 70s, whatever. I mean, it's like when the Nixon, Watergate shit. I mean, they claim to be that kind of shit. It's like, ooh, Bellingcat. Like, it's the same thing as Bellingcat, basically. It's funded by essentially the same people. Pierre Omidyar is ultimately he's not a direct weapons contractor, but he's dealing directly with his buddies in the military-industrial complex, and he's rooting for them big time. So, like, don't ever, ever, ever whistleblow to The Intercept. And I hope this video goes viral because the world needs to fucking know that. Do not give that man your documents under any circumstances because he will send you to prison for doing it. Trust me, he will. He's done it 3 times. oh, it was a mistake. It was journalist error when we uncovered the whistleblower's identity and this and that. Oh, we just happened to uncover their identity. And it wasn't uh, deliberate at all of any kind. Like there wasn't a deliberate. Twice you guys fucked up twice, and then the third time, who knows what happened? But twice you guys have journalist error in your whistleblower process where you fuck up so bad that the whistleblower gets caught by the fucking authorities and goes to prison. Yeah, that happens. Never has happened in the history of fucking journalism in America. But it happens at The Intercept, so don't fucking go there. And don't fucking read that cum rag anyway, because it's garbage. It's garbage. Everybody who writes for that shit rag is fucking terrible anyway. Like, from Lee Fang to fucking, I mean, the dude with this, he cuts his own hair. I don't remember his name, but Ryan Grimm. And Ken Kepperstein, whatever the fuck his name is. That guy's a fucking joke. But anyway, yeah, Ken Kepperstein is a fucking joke, that dude. He's a fucking retard. Class A fucking moron. And people are listening to him as some kind of like authority on things that he discovers through these magical journalistic endeavors he goes on. And he gets given documents because he's so special. Him and Ryan Grimm and Lee Fang, yeah. They release versions of what they want you to hear from those documents. Like they give you kernels of truth to pique your interest, to make sure you're still interested in The Intercept. So you think they're telling the truth, but they don't give you 1/100th of the story. That's why they don't have a database of the files themselves for you to download like WikiLeaks used to do. Because they're lying to you. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent about The Intercept now, and I got some on that. Whatever, I don't give a fuck. I don't really give a shit about anything these days. Who does? I mean, who does? But I just want to quickly, and I guess end with this. Maybe I won't. I don't know. We'll see. But here's the reality. If you're a blind Russophobe, like you just hate Russia, you don't know why, rethink your position, because you've been told that through a series of deliberate information campaigns. You've been propagandized. So step back. I mean, I'm trying to save your life when things end and things don't go your way, because they're not going to go in Ukraine's way. I guarantee you that. They're not going to go in America's way either. I'm trying to save a few people from just realize the truth. It's like, you're on the wrong side if you're back in Ukraine. Let's just think about this for a second. In 2005, 5 years after Putin was initially made the, prime minister under Yeltsin, but he in 2005 he issued the 9/11 memorial statue, which I don't know if people know this, but that giant statue in New York that's the teardrop, it's about 100 feet tall. It's a giant, beautiful granite statue with the names of every single victim carved into it. That was from Vladimir Putin. That was a gift from Russia to us. He was basically saying, let's be friends. You guys are powerful, and I need you on my side. I mean, he wasn't trying to fuck around. He's like, we're capitalists. I'm capitalist. Let's just be cool. That's literally what he's doing. And you know what we did? We expanded NATO in his direction in response. We're like, hey, that's nice, Vlad, but we're going to go ahead and just put NATO in Georgia for now, and then just going to keep moving it towards you. So, like, what is the dude supposed to do? And then we have a coup in Ukraine in 2014 because of Victoria fat fucking bitch Jabba the Hutt Newland. Or like, she was on recording talking about how she's setting up a new government in Ukraine right around the time that the government fell. That had nothing to do with it, though. Hey, who are we going to install? Oh, and she even said, fuck the Europeans. We don't care about them. When it was brought up this could be a problem for the Europeans, she's like, fuck the EU, she said. And I quote, fuck the EU. So anyone who happens to see this in any EU state, Victoria Nuland is your bitch. And you should treat her as such, because she's a fat Jabba the Hutt cunt. You just want to slap her. So anyway. going ahead of myself. But yeah, anyway, I mean, this goes real deep. Joe Biden was the vice president at the time in 2014, and his son was working, I think, at Burisma. Maybe he was getting his position at Burisma at the time for no reason, which is the most powerful energy company in Ukraine, run by a billionaire oligarch. And Joe Biden was I guess you call it a liaison to Ukraine. He was like how Kamala Harris, her thing is the border, laughingly is the border. Joe Biden's thing as the vice president was Ukraine. And under his, whatever you want to call it, we overthrew the democratically elected government in Ukraine. It was called the Maidan coup, or the Maidan revolution. And there's pictures of Victoria Nuland handing out cookies to protesters during that time. And there's some pretty egregious shit that happened. I mean, like the Nazis that were already there because we've been talking about it for fucking 20 years in the news until all of a sudden everybody forgot about them. But they've been there for a long time. They burned 39 people alive in Odessa. They locked them in a building and burned the building down, killed them all. And nobody cared because America was in charge at that point. Yanukovych left. Like he was democratically elected just because he was considering having a more Russia-leaning civilization. America just couldn't have that because Ukraine is apparently pivotal to our hegemony, which is dead. It doesn't matter how hard we try, it's dead. Because we put the control in the hands of people that we're not at war with. I mean, Saudi Arabia, China. I mean, we're trying to be at war with China, but India, South Africa. I mean, the BRICS nations and like OPEC Plus, it kind of rule the world. And they're going to tank the dollar. And it sucks because I live in America and it's going to be shitty. But honestly, there would be a bitter sweetness to it because I just want to see this whole Ponzi scheme fall apart. I know it's going to blow. Personally, it means like having nothing is going to suck. But we've already destroyed the world. I mean, systematically. We took out, after World War II, we basically played whack-a-mole on the world. There was actual Operation Underworld in 1942, during which the OSS and the Office of Naval Intelligence officially joined forces with organized crime in America. All fashions of organized crime, like the mob, the Jewish mafia, all that stuff, the Irish mafia, all of them. And they never really let go. They said they ended the program in 1944. That didn't happen. The CIA has been in cahoots with them since day one. In fact, the CIA are the biggest traffickers of people on the planet because their buddies, the organized crime units that they work directly with and have been for 80 years, were experts at trafficking people already. They were. I mean, you think the sex trafficking wasn't around back then? I mean, it wasn't as big, and it moved bigger and bigger as time went on, and they became professionals at it. They were the first sex traffickers, and they were in cahoots with the CIA. But at the dawn of the CIA, they were in the same bed together. They were born together. Well, they weren't born together, but the CIA was born with the organized crime in its body. Basically, it's not ever going to leave. It's part of its DNA, which kind of explains a lot of the whole like murdering JFK thing, and I guess they did, and it was proven through the documents basically that Oswald was a CIA asset 3 months prior to the goddamn fucking assassination, even though no one believes Oswald did it. But they set him up as a patsy. They did it themselves. There's still the whole issue of the actual, like they didn't even address this. Like when people are like, oh look, Oswald did it. No, he didn't do it. They used him as a patsy. But the point is he was involved. And that means the CIA was involved. Because there's records of them being involved with each other at that time. So yeah, there you go. And who wanted Kennedy dead more than anybody? It should be an easy one if you know your history. But Executive order, I think it's, I don't remember, this a bunch of ones and a zero, one, zero, one, ones, and blah, blah, blah. It's like a binary code. But it's the executive order that effectively ended the Federal Reserve's ability to print its own money for the United States. What Kennedy did is he took the power from the Federal Reserve to print the money, and he gave it to uh, the government, the U.S. government, the Treasury Department specifically. And if you actually find the bills from this era, like they still sell them, and they, you have a dollar bill that says Federal Reserve note. These bills say U.S. Treasury note because they didn't have anything to do with the Federal Reserve. They didn't like that, and there's only one other president in history that did that. That was President Lincoln. Guess how that ended? No coincidence, is it? That he just decided he was going to cut out the central banks and make his own government currency called the greenback to fund his Civil War efforts, with a whole heap of like complicated economic financial aspects to it. It wasn't just simple currency. It wasn't just here is money. I mean, the whole thing was thought out very well. But listen, my phone's about to die. I've been rambling for half an hour now. Jesus H. Christ. But anyway, good night, good luck, and keep going. I don't know. Have a good time.